Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're skipping the basic definitions and diving straight into the deep end of business partnerships. We're going to break down the advanced financial mechanics and, honestly, the hidden tax frameworks that expert analysts use to optimize wealth and shield liability. If you're looking to understand the implicit rules and those non-obvious details that actually dictate how these entities operate behind the scenes, well, you're in the exact right place. Let's get into it. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the anatomy of a partnership, then look at how partners actually get paid. After that, we'll unpack the pass-through tax framework, navigate the tricky maze of business loss limitations, and finally, look at a very specific exception for spousal joint ventures. All right, starting off with the anatomy of a partnership and its foundational operations. Right out of the gate, expert analysis points to a massive, non-obvious insight about choosing your entity. See, single-owner businesses, which are often set up as disregarded entities, actually face a measurably higher risk of being audited. Why is that? Well, it's cause and effect. All your business expenses and revenues are sitting right there, neatly exposed on one individual tax schedule. It makes them an incredibly easy target for regulatory algorithms. But when you use a multi-member partnership, it's strategically superior for your operational privacy. The financial data gets dispersed. The entity files its own informational return and distributes that tax data across multiple partners, which implicitly lowers that centralized audit risk. Pretty smart, right? Now let's look at the operating agreement. And look, this isn't just some legal formality you sign and throw in a drawer. It's literally the operational algorithm of your business. Think of it like the source code for software. If there's a bug in that code, the whole system crashes. The reports consistently show that failing to structurally nail down these exact components up front is the #1 cause of catastrophic internal conflicts later on. You have to define what happens in a deadlock before you're actually in one. You need rules for future capital injections before the business runs out of cash. Basically, a solid operating agreement protects your long-term stability by removing assumptions and replacing them with strict contractual certainty. Moving right along to partner compensation mechanisms and financial mechanics, let's see how money actually flows. So how do partners actually extract wealth from the entity? There's a brilliant strategic contrast here compared to traditional setups. In a standard corporate structure, owners usually take a W-2 salary, right? But that triggers heavy double payroll taxation. You get hit on the employer side and the employee side. Partnerships bypass this. By taking owners' draws or profit distributions, partners pull out profits that are subject to income tax, sure, but they strategically bypass those heavy payroll taxes. Or they can use guaranteed payments, which act almost like a fixed salary regardless of whether the business is actually profitable that year. The structural choice you make here directly dictates your ultimate tax burden. Next up, the pass-through tax framework and how these entities avoid double taxation. To really grasp why those compensation methods work so well, you have to understand the pass-through framework. Under a traditional corporate model, wealth gets taxed twice, first at the company level and then again when the owner gets a dividend. But partnerships legally bypass entity-level income tax entirely. Instead, each partner reports their share of the partnership's income or loss on their personal tax return. To provide more information about partnerships and why this is so valuable, the tax liability or the incredibly powerful tax benefit of a business loss is pushed straight through the business. It lands squarely on the individual's return to be taxed just once at their personal rate. It's a highly efficient mechanism that keeps a lot more capital in your pocket. Okay, section 4, navigating business loss limitations, which is basically a regulatory gauntlet. This is one of the most highly analyzed yet misunderstood areas out there, claiming a business loss. Let me be clear, claiming a loss is never automatic. Expert guidelines show it has to survive a strict chronological obstacle course. First up, the basis rules. You literally cannot deduct a loss that's bigger than the capital you've invested. Next, the at-risk rules. Even with basis, you must actually be economically at risk for that money. It can't be shielded by a non-recourse loan. Then we hit the passive activity rules, which stop passive investors from using business losses to offset their active everyday wage income. And finally, the excess business loss rules apply a hard statutory cap on massive losses. If you fail even a single step in this sequence, your deduction is either deferred to future years or entirely denied. Let's zoom in on a non-obvious detail in step 3, that passive activity hurdle, especially in real estate. If you're a limited partner just throwing money into a deal, your losses are legally trapped as passive. They absolutely cannot offset your active income. But experts highlight an incredible structural exception here, the real estate professional status. If a partner or their spouse spends over 750 hours and more than half their working time in real estate, those formerly trapped passive losses suddenly unlock. They become active losses that can wipe out your ordinary income. The hidden trap, though? Flawless documentation. If you don't have meticulous time tracking, I'm talking calendars, emails, the whole shebang, auditors will instantly disallow the recharacterization. Finally, Section 5, spousal joint venture exceptions and the structural traps hidden within them. Let's look at a really specific regulatory exception designed for married partners. Normally, if spouses run a business together, the default role treats them as a standard partnership, requiring complex, separate entity-level tax returns. But by electing qualified joint venture or QJV status, they can completely bypass that headache. They get to divide the income, report it right on their joint personal return, and both individuals still get those critical Social Security and Medicare retirement credits, assuming they both materially participate in the daily management, of course. It's a fantastic administrative shortcut. But here is the massive hidden trap. There's actually a direct conflict between federal tax law and state legal protection here. Structural analysis reveals that if you operate the spousal joint venture through a limited liability company to protect your personal assets from lawsuits, this highly beneficial QJV tax selection is instantly and completely invalidated. Federal guidelines are explicitly clear that state law entities, like LLCs, cannot use the QJV shortcut. So you're forced to choose. Do you want the operational legal protection of the LLC, which forces you to file a full partnership return? Or do you want the administrative ease of the QJV, which leaves you operating as an exposed general partnership? So we'll leave you with this to audit your own operations. Is your partnership structure designed for maximum operational protection? Or is it secretly exposing you to unseen tax liabilities? Expert-level structuring isn't just about filing a few forms to launch an entity. It's about mastering these non-obvious mechanisms and regulatory gauntlets that ultimately govern your wealth. Thank you for joining me to deconstruct these complex structures today, and I hope this analysis helps you truly optimize your own business structure.